Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the latest episode of Star Wars Ahsoka. It was called Time to Fly. And as it starts, Sabine is training with Huyang, and she does okay at hitting the targets that he puts before her with his multiple arms, but not great. And then Ahsoka steps in to try to help her train, and she gives her a helmet, just like Obi-Wan gave to Luke in A New Hope. And she almost says the exact same line as Luke about not being able to fight if she can't see. Ahsoka then moves around the room quietly and strikes at her with a wooden training blade at different intervals to help Sabine try to sense where her opponent might be without using her eyes. And again, she does okay, but not great. And Ahsoka has to explain to her that although anger and frustration can give her power, it can also unbalance her. Meanwhile, Hera briefs Chancellor Mon Mothma and some senators via holocommunications about the fact that Thrawn might still be alive. And one of the senators accuses her of pretending that this is the case because what she really wants is to get her hands on Republic resources in order to find Ezra. But she shuts him down by asking him whether or not he had served in the war. And of course, he hadn't. So he kind of had to have a big old cup of shut the hell up. We then see Hera's son, Jason, greet her in a hallway with Chopper and ask if he can be a Jedi like Sabine is training to be. And this was cool because some fans were a little annoyed that he wasn't mentioned in the first two episodes after his existence came up at the very end of season 4 of Rebels, the end of the series. And now they too can have a big cup of shut the hell up. Anyway, Sabine then tells Ahsoka that she doesn't think she'll be able to use the Force because she doesn't feel it. But Ahsoka assures her that because everyone has it in them, she should be able to if she learns how to focus and if she trains and if she has some measure of talent. And she tells her to start small after herself using the Force to move a drinking cup across the table. Sabine then tries to move the cup herself but doesn't manage to before Ahsoka calls her to the cockpit to talk with Hera by holocommunication, who manages to say that she won't be able to bring them any resources to help with their mission before communications are jammed by something in the system that they've entered. Liang detects a large object in the area but doesn't know what it is just before Ahsoka's ship comes under attack by Balin's apprentice and a couple of other small fighters that resembled like World War I and World War II era fighter planes, which was pretty cool actually. So this crazy dogfight ensues, and working together, Sabine and Ahsoka manage to take out a bunch of ships after a couple more join the fight, just before they come upon the device that Balin and the Witch Lady have constructed, which starts firing on Ahsoka's ship. And this, of course, ends up disabling her ship, at which point the remaining fighters close in. Ahsoka then goes onto the hull of the ship, the exterior, in a spacesuit with her lightsabers as the three remaining fighters close in. And when they buzz her, she jumps off the hull of the ship and does like a flip in space before landing on the other side, but not being able to hit the ships until they make another pass, at which point she does it again and does in fact manage to cut one of them to pieces when she whacks at the ships with her lightsabers. However, at that point, she was floating in space because she had moved too far away from the hull for her gravity boots to keep her on the hull. But Sabine manages to get the disabled ship working and maneuvers it close enough to her that her mag boots could hit the hull, at which point she got back on the hull and then went in the ship through the same airlock that she exited from. The fight then continued in the atmosphere of a planet as opposed to up in space, at which point a couple of space whales show up and all the ships have to move around them, Ahsoka fleeing the attackers and the attackers pursuing. Ahsoka's ship then manages to hide in the cloud cover and get a certain distance away, undetected by the pursuers, and then lands in a heavily wooded area, shutting down power to help avoid detection until the fighter ships passed overhead, not finding them, at which point Ahsoka put the power back on. From a scan of the device that Hyuga took while the battle was happening in space, he determines that the device is a hyperspace ring capable of hyperjumping to another galaxy, which is apparently something that was done in the past by following the migration patterns of the space whale things. Just before the episode ends, Balin orders his men and droids to hunt down Ahsoka and Sabine in the forest. And that was the end of the episode. So I really enjoyed this episode. I'm annoyed that it was only 31 minutes and a few seconds long. That's just terribly annoying, given that we now have to wait another week for the next episode, at which point we'll be halfway through the season. But yeah, it was just really good. The dogfights, both in space and in the atmosphere of the planet, were crazy cool. Ahsoka going onto the hull and jumping off and attacking the ships with her lightsabers, it was just insane. Seeing the space whales show up was nuts. And, all of that was just great. The training scene in the beginning was very cool. They had some cool music that they used during that sequence, and I just thought it was really good. Seeing a Jedi train a Padawan has always been part of Star Wars, and I think they're doing a good job with it on this show so far. David Tennant, amazing. I love the Huyang character. The CGI for that character is just insane, unless it's a practical effect. This droid, which I don't think it is. I don't think it's Anthony Daniels in a C-3PO suit situation. It's just impeccable. You cannot tell. And, like I said, David Tennant is just great in the part. It was great to see Mon Mothma again. And the scenes, with Hera were very good. The way she handled herself in front of the senators that were kind of giving her a hard time was really great. I just think this was an excellent episode. I will say that I don't quite feel like these versions of the characters from Rebels and the Clone Wars, in the case of Ahsoka, really feel to me like those characters, but they have their names and their looks and their histories, so it's working for me. But I don't know if it's an issue of casting or directing, or if the writing is slightly different. They don't quite feel like the characters from Rebels, and Ahsoka doesn't quite feel like Ahsoka, but it's working for me anyway, if that makes any sense. So I'm just really enjoying this show. Though I do wish this episode had been longer and then we got to see more of Balin. Hopefully we'll get to see more of him in the next episode, because at that point, like I said, we'll be halfway through the series. And of course, Ray Stevens passed away. So if they don't get it in this season, even if there's another season, yeah, we're not going to get any more after that, unless they recast the part, which that's not the point. The point I'm making is I want to see Ray Stevens as this character. So yeah, that's it. Now we have to wait another week for episode 4, but I just really enjoyed this episode, and my plot recap does not do it justice. But that's it. I'm gonna get out of here. I'll be back next week to review the next episode. Until I return, may the force be with you.